What's up, Bladers? This is Radical Ross, and today we are doing a Beyblade tier list. This tier list is going to be all of the crazy launchers from the very first season. I tried to put all of these into the correct order in which they appear. Some of them might be out of place, and for the most part, I found that most of these launchers don't have official names, so I just wrote down basically what they're based off of. For the sake of consistency, each one of these I'm mostly just going to refer to as a shooter, but let's get right into it. So first up, we have the basic, standard, regular Beyblade shooter. And even though this is the standard, and it came with pretty much every starter pack, every Beyblade that you would buy back then, there's not really anything amazing about it. So right off the bat, I'm going to put this one into C. Next up, we've got the launcher handle that Max used in, I think it was episode 3. So again, it's not super fancy. It's just a basic grip handle. I'm also going to throw that one into C. Next up, we've got the left spin launcher for Tyson's Dragoon. Again, it's basically just a standard launcher, but left spin. So just like the other ones, I'm just going to throw that into C tier. So now we're getting into the more impressive ones, the more custom ones with gimmicks. Starting off with Tyson's catapult shooter. And, I had this one as a kid. I thought the gimmick was pretty fun. Not like amazing or game-changing or anything, but you could set it to catapult or just use it as a regular launcher handle. For that, I'm going to put this one up in B. Next, we've got Bruce with his nunchuck shooter. And this one and one other one that I'll mention when we get to it were the inspiration for making this whole list. So the nunchuck shooter, when I first saw that, I thought that was amazing. So I'm going to put that one. I'm going to say up in S tier, because not only is it a cool design, but you also have to know how to use nunchucks to use it properly. The next one that we have here is Andre's wrist-mounted Bangle shooter. So, aside from being mounted on a bangle that's on his wrist, I don't really find it all that impressive. So, just like the other basic launchers, which technically it is, I'm going to put this one into C tier. The next one we have, which is the other one that's the inspiration for this video, is Tommy's Muay Thai kick shooter. So this one is basically just a launcher that's attached to an ankle sock, or like an ankle covering, that he puts his Beyblade on and then does some crazy kicks and fires it off. So, again, it's just a basic shooter, but the fact that you need to know how to use Muay Thai to use it effectively, this one's going in S tier. The next one that we have here is Max's sniper grip. And, it was very interesting to use it in person, because it actually had like a little light that shone down into your stadium. But the problem that I find with this one in the show is that the arenas are so big that I can't see this working effectively. But, it's a cool design, and the real life one was pretty cool, so I'm going to put it in B along with the catapult shooter. The next one we've got here is pretty iconic. It's Tyson's Dragoon shooter. And unfortunately, I never got the opportunity to own this one. It's super iconic to Tyson's character. It's a really cool handle in general. I'm going to throw this one up into A tier. So next we've got Kai's spring shooter. And, again, it's pretty much a basic handle with some springs added onto it. Since it is more than just a basic launcher, I'm going to throw this one up into B tier as well. So next up, we have Tony's microphone shooter. And while the shooter itself isn't all that impressive, it's just a microphone with a attachment piece onto it. The fact that as he sings and raps during his battle, the Beyblade performs differently, I thought that was pretty cool. I'm going to throw this one into B tier as well. Alright, so next on the list is Andy and his pallet shooter. And I mean, this one's got an interesting design. Like, the paintbrush itself, I guess, is supposed to be the ripcord, but it just looks super awkward to hold. And it's the Beyblade itself that does the cool color paint stuff in the arena. So, this one I'm also going to throw into B tier just because it is cooler than a basic launcher, but not really by much. So the next one we have here is going to be Emily and her tennis racket shooter. And I always thought that this one was pretty cool just because, like some of the other ones, you need to have a separate skill in order to use it effectively. And that first match where she fires her Beyblade, it smashes into Dracil and immediately sends it flying out of the arena was one of the coolest shots. So this one, I'm also going to throw into A tier. So the next one we have is Steven's football shooter. And, I know I was saying about how a lot of these you need to have a secondary skill to be able to use effectively, but this one I always felt was the weaker out of all the all-stars, because yes, Steven knows how to play football and he has to be able to kick the football properly, but it didn't look like that actually had any impact because all it did was open up and fire the Beyblade out. It didn't seem like his kick had any impact on how hard or fast the Beyblade was actually launched. So because of that, I'm also going to throw the football shooter into B tier. Alright, so now we've got Ray's Drigger shooter. And just like the Dragoon shooter, it's pretty cool looking. Unfortunately, I never owned one when I was a kid, but I find that this one isn't quite as iconic as the Dragoon shooter or like integral to the character. So, it's still really cool, so I'm going to put it up in A. The next one that we have is Michael's baseball shooter. And this is another one of the ones that I thought was really cool, especially because of how ridiculous it is, the fact that the baseball has a super long ripcord and then the ball just splits open and fires the Beyblade out. So that is another one that I'm going to put up into, I'm going to go S tier on this one, because I feel like, the harder he throws, and he proves it in the anime when he switches to his dominant hand, but the harder he throws, the more powerful his launch is. Alright, so now we've got Miguel and his guitar shooter. And I mean, this one looks cool, but I feel like it's very ineffective just because of the sheer size. It seems very awkward and very bulky, and clearly it doesn't work super well because Kai absolutely destroyed this guy. So because of that, I'm actually going to put this one down in C tier as well. So the next one that we have here is Pedro and his Estoque shooter. Hopefully I'm pronouncing that right, but apparently that is the name of the swords that matadors use when they're bullfighting. And, it's a friggin' sword launcher that's awesome on its own. If you rolled up and had a launcher attached to a sword and was able to use it effectively, that's another one that I've got to put in S tier. So next up we have Jose. And this one, instead of calling it the revolver shooter, I thought it was a really cool name to call it the six shooter. It's a launcher that's a gun. Unlike the ones that we see later with the Blitzkrieg Boys, or I guess in this season they would be called the Demolition Boys, but regardless of the ones that we see with them where they kind of just pull the trigger and it fires, this one on the back side Not only does he pull the trigger, but it also has a ripcord. It's shaped like an old school revolver. It's going up in S tier. So this next one I find is very unique, as a lot of these are, but this one especially. It is Frankie's fishing rod shooter. It's definitely a cool idea, but personally I don't really care for it all that much. So this one I'm going to put in A tier. So the next one that we've got is Eddie's basketball shooter. This is one of those ones that is just a little bit more ridiculous than all of the other ridiculous ones, because you're telling me that somehow they wrapped the ripcord around in a circle, stuck it all together, and it held itself together in the shape of a basketball until he slams it down and pulls the ripcord. So I'd say the coolest thing about this one is just the fact that it's probably like a 30-foot long ripcord, but just because of how absolutely ridiculous it is, it's gonna go in A tier instead of S. So these next ones here are some of my personal favorites. So first up, from the Majestics, we have Enrique and his sword and shield shooter. So this design is peak. Like, the shield itself looks absolutely amazing, and then having a Beyblade in the center of it that fires out. And then the fact that the sword that he carries has notches carved into it, and he uses that as his ripcord. That combination alone, plus, you know, like the Majestics all have their cool armor to wear. Like, the drip on that team is absolutely insane. The sword and shield shooter is definitely S tier. Like, I'm gonna put that in top of S. Same with this next one here, Johnny's battle axe shooter. Now, I find it weird that Johnny was the only one from the Majestics that didn't get a helmet with his armor, and the only thing I can think of is just because he has big spiky hair. But other than that, the way that it works is also a little disappointing in my mind. He slams the axe down, and then a little mechanism flips over and fires the Beyblade out. I think it would have been cooler had the attachment part of the launcher been stuck to the side of the battle axe, and he like flung the battle axe around before firing it, because it would make it seem more like it was the strength of his swing that was giving his Beyblade more momentum. But regardless, it's a battle axe that acts as a shooter. That one's definitely going in S tier. So now we've got, to finish up the specialized Bit-B shooters, is Kai's Dronzer shooter. And you know, just like the others, it's a wicked design. Unfortunately, I never had one, but that one is going to go right in A along with the others. So the next ones that we have here, you don't actually get to see them with the introduction of the characters. So the first time that they meet Oliver in France, Oliver uses just a regular launcher, but then when they actually do the big team battle, that's when Oliver has the armor as well as the rapier shooter. I'm not as big of a fan of this one, even though it is cool. I'm going to put this one in top of A tier, just because I feel like compared to the shield and sword and the battle axe, it's not as impressive. So along with the next one here, Robert's flail shooter. And I'm kind of disappointed by this one, because Robert was built up so much. He has an incredibly awesome looking Bit Beast in Grifolium, and the flail itself looks really cool, but the problem that I have with it is, at least the way it's animated, is that he swings the flail around, smashes it into the ground, and then pulls the ripcord. So it's like swinging the flail itself had zero impact on the launch. So I just feel like had they had him swing it around and then his Beyblade flew off, would make it look a lot more appealing. It's an amazing looking launcher, but just the execution of it I don't like as much. So that one is also going to go in A tier. Alright, so next up we have another one of the ones that was the inspiration for this video, because I absolutely loved this thing when I first saw it. It is Alexander's Matryoshka shooter. Hopefully I'm pronouncing that right, but basically Russian nesting doll shooter. The fact that this kid spins around, swinging around this huge looking Beyblade on like a cable wire, and then all of a sudden it opens up like 4 or 5 times until finally shooting out his actual Beyblade. The way that it was animated, I thought, was the coolest. So this one is also going to go up into S tier. So next up, we are on to the Demolition Boys. And, you know, I Googled different types of guns because I don't really know a whole lot about firearms. So I just tried to find the ones that looked as similar to the launchers that they're using. So if you know of a firearm that fits what they're using more than the one that I chose, definitely leave a comment and let me know, because I would really like to know what it's actually supposed to be, because their Beyblade wiki page didn't really have any information on it either. So first up, we've got Ian, and the closest thing I was able to find for his was a C6 machine gun. And you know, just the fact that you're rolling up, you've got these crazy looking goggles, this big nose, and you point a machine gun at somebody and then fire a Beyblade, like, you know, that's just awesome. So this one, just like the 6 shooter, I'm going to put up in S tier. The next one we've got here is Brian, and his is a really crazy design. So I just call it the pistol shooter, because I really couldn't find a firearm that looks like this thing. This one, unfortunately, I found to be a little underwhelming compared to the other ones. I find, like, yes, it's crazy design, but it feels very basic. So for this one, I'm also just going to put it into A tier. So now we've got Spencer and his F90 assault rifle shooter. So, you know, I misremembered this thing. I thought it was a lot bigger than it actually is, but showing up to a match with something like this, and, you know, you just pull a trigger and fire, and there goes your Beyblade. Plus, it's got this sick-looking scope on the end of it. You know, it's really cool. I'm going to put it up in S tier along with the other firearm ones. And then finally, we've got Tala and his Uzi shooter. Now, this one I find has a better looking design than Brian's shooter, and I find that it fits Tala's character design better. This one, I'm also going to put it up into S tier. So I wasn't really organizing these by how much I liked them when I put them into their tiers, but I'll go ahead and do that now. So starting with C tier, we can definitely put the guitar shooter at top of C tier, just because it's the most unique out of all the ones in C tier. Same, like, I'd say that Andre's Bangle shooter would probably be next, then Max's basic handle, then the left spin shooter, then the basic shooter. As for B tier, I think it's pretty much how I'd like it already. I think I might put Kai's spring shooter second, right behind the catapult grip. So then in A tier, I think top of A tier, I'm gonna put the tennis racket shooter, just because that one seemed the most impressive. And then, yeah, I think the flail shooter, the rapier, dragoon, Dronzer, Drigger, you know, like, they're specified to each bit beast, but they're all basically the same shooter. I'm gonna put Eddie's basketball shooter above those ones, and I'm gonna put Brian's pistol shooter above them as well. I'm gonna leave the fishing rod shooter at the end, just because I'd say that one's my least favorite in this tier. As for S tier, I definitely think top of S tier is gonna be the sword and shield. And this is where it's gonna get difficult, because a lot of these are really awesome shooter designs. I like Spencer's more than I like Ian's. think Tommy's Muay Thai kick shooter is probably my second favorite. Bruce's nunchuck shooter is probably my third. I like the 6 shooter more than I like the baseball shooter. Do I like the Russian nesting doll one more than I like the battle axe though? I think for the sake of the launcher, if we were going with like the whole aesthetic, Johnny in his armor with the battle axe shooter is cooler, but just pure launcher aesthetic, I definitely like Alexander's launcher better. And then, I think I like sword launcher more than the baseball launcher, but I'm also not super huge on most guns. Like, I like revolvers, but I'm not a big fan of more modern designs. So I think the baseball shooter is going to stay ahead of those ones, but I think that's a good order for those ones as well. So I'm really hoping that I didn't miss any. I'm pretty sure I got all of them. If there's any from the original first season that I'm forgetting, please let me know. Other than that, if anybody else has a top pick from this list, I definitely want to know, out of all of these ones, what your favorite is, and like what ones you remember the most, which ones you thought looked the coolest, even though they might not have worked as well. And other than that, I just want to thank everybody for checking out this video. This is the first tier list that I decided to do. I thought all the different crazy shooters in the anime were a good one to do the first one for. The channel's slowly growing. I want to thank everybody that's already subscribed, and hopefully this channel continues to grow so that we can continue sharing our love of Beyblade with you all. Thank you for watching, and until next time, I will catch you later.